How are you, John? Oh yeah, I think you just need to put your camera on.
How about now?
And there he is, beautiful. Well, I was gonna say good evening to you, but of course with the time difference, I think you're on Eastern time, aren't you? So good afternoon. How are you, John?
It's actually I'm on the Pacific, so it's 11 a.m. here.
Oh
And
wow,
good morning.
even
Just
earlier.
Good hydration to you all.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you joining me earlier then. I think the first thing I'd like to say is actually it's an exciting moment for me because I've interviewed a lot of artists, but occasionally there'll be a moment where I guess I take myself out of it a bit because I interview someone that I remember being a lot younger and loving the music of. And I think it was Mellowdrone where I first found you. The song Fashionably Uninvited came up on my YouTube. And it instantly struck a chord with me in my teenage years, kind of 2008 era, and I had my blue iPod Nano that I was listening to the box on. So, yeah, thank you for your music. It's actually, with Big Black Delta, I was into it from when it launched, and I've really enjoyed a lot of your music since then. So thank you for that, firstly.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you.
So I guess the first thing to think about is that progression from Mellowdrone to Big Black Delta. Like, what was that process like for you? Do you feel like there was a certain kind of energy that was, it was always very cathartic, I think, Mellowdrone, but a certain style that you wanted to achieve, a certain message or sound that you couldn't as a band? And I think I remember reading that you found organizing bands to be a bit frustrating sometimes, so you wanted to work a bit more solo.
Yeah, Mellowdrone had such bad luck. It's hard not to wonder if it was because of, I mean, it was ultimately because of me, because that's where the buck stops. But we had really bad luck business-wise, and it was one of these things that it was just a Sisyphusian kind of feeling where we could just continue to play empty bars, and it just, after a while, we were like, the wheels had come off and all of us were broke all the time, so it was kind of like taking a break, because all of us have been musicians since we were like, professionally since we were like 17.
Yeah.
And so none of us had felt, not that there is normality, because I don't believe in that, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so I got really interested, and I just wanted to spend some time like being a fan of a football team.
Oh, really?
No, you know what I mean? Being stoked about going to a movie, because prior to that, it was just always about making music. And
yeah, inescapably.
And so I just, and I think I can speak for Tony as well, is that we had no idea who we were as human beings, as people. Like, if you had asked us, like, what do you like? It would just, because since you're 17 and you're that's how you make a living.
Yeah.
It's kind of fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I meant, about putting the band together, because like Tony DiMatteo worked harder than I did, as far as like, he drove most of the time in the van, which is like, these kind of things build up after year.
Yeah.
So we all just were like, we're kind of done. Tony and Brian are now very successful people on their own right. Tony's continued to write amazing music, and we hope to work together. And at the time I tried just not doing that and just doing a 9-to-5, which you could get in 2007 and 8. There were jobs still.
Yeah. Nothing was online, or not everything was online. It was still a bit.
Well, I mean, it's just that, like, now, today, currently, I don't know how it is in the UK, and I'm sure it's going to be completely different tomorrow. But in America, it's like impossible to get a job. It's impossible to buy. We are officially like fourth world, and And so things have changed so drastically here. But I don't want to get into that. Anyway, long
sure.
story longer. Then I just kind of got called back to it, especially since like by that point technology had gotten so good, and so that you could on Logic on your laptop or whatever, you could really record things, and you could record things that you heard in your head, which prior to that it was still very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I reflect on a lot, and I wasn't old enough probably to remember, but Mellowdrone, it feels like you were quite a big band. Like when Box came out, it was on Sony, right? And it does make me think that there's so many bands from my childhood, because I remember like the 2000s when indie music started to boom after the Strokes, going and buying CDs for these bands. But if bands from that era that had been that successful had been maybe 20 years younger, if you look at it now, the amount of things that artists own, like social media platforms that almost ensure they have a bit more of a legacy and a longevity, it feels like from your era of Mellowdrone, it was a lot more precarious. Like you could go from playing a huge...
And so part of what was the problem was that like, so we did well. Columbia signed us, and which Sony owns, and we were doing well. But then while we were there, a new president of the company comes in. Yeah. And so that with any kind of corporation, that's how it is. If anybody's ever had that kind of a job, as soon as the new president comes in, everything changes, all the sycophants change and everything. So then we had to re-impress that guy in order to get a budget to continue. And so we did. Things went well. The record came out. This was even before the record came out. And prior to that, I was a guy held onto my contract for like 6 years. This billionaire who started Interscope Records. So prior to that, he had signed me, and he was trying to sell me for like $500,000 around town. And I was like, bro, I've never put anything out. Why would anybody pay that, you know?
You so make it sound like you're a footballer almost, like a football team would sell a player. They're almost treating you like that.
So that's how it was then, though. That's how it's exactly how it was. I mean, it was very much like that. And so we finally got out of that. I took the money that gave us and bought a van and a trailer, and you know, we went out and did it. And it, like I said, it was just like after a while you're like, hey, I gave this a go. I'm not having a good time anymore. And so I had to learn how to like enjoy making music for me, which I had forgotten how to do, because everything at that point, like that's a perfect analogy, you know, and that's what it's so hard to be a famous footballer, is that like, now you got a chick that's got 1 billion followers. So every time you guys go out, you have to like do this. And then you've got a really fancy car, you got everything that you like, but everything still sucks. Yeah. Fuck. You know, and it's so cliche. It's, you know, it's almost Homeric.
But going into Big Black Delta, it feels like that was kind of your renaissance, your rebirth. And I was reading, is it true that it's Alessandro Cortini from the 9 Inch Nails who helped you like with this synth pad, like introduced you to a lot of these electronic sounds?
So before he was in 9 Inch Nails, he had a solo thing called Mod Wheel Mood, or not, with a musician called Pelle Hillstrom. You guys should look it up, Mod Wheel Mood.
Will do.
And it just really great songwriting. And so him and that act and Mellowdrone would tour a lot, because we were also drinking at the time, and so it was just so much fucking fun to play these small venues, and the shows were real punk rock, you know what I mean? Like people would leave cut up, literally. And it's funny because when you listen to the music, you're like, I don't get it, and it's like, neither do I. It was just such a weird time. So anyway, he gets the 9 Inch Nails gig, and through like after a couple tours or whatever, he's like, hey, I've got this leftover touring laptop, do you want it? It's got Logic, and he shows me Logic, and I'm like, holy shit. So you can do this here, and then you can buy a little MIDI keyboard for $50
There you
on
go,
Amazon.
right there.
And you can do anything in the park or on your bed or whatever. And so now everybody does it, and but at the time it was still very, very, very novel, and that's where Big Black Delta came from. And then from there it was like, Mellowdrone is a very sad music, is honestly, and so it was like Big Black Delta. I wanted it to be more like Billy Idol or something that was just music you could work out to.
Yeah. But it's just so massive, and I think my background's radio production, so when I first heard it, I almost appreciate it from that production point of view, because it just sounds so massive, and I find myself like I chase that sound of like Capsize. Betamax is a little different, but just the hits in Capsize. I remember even like I was editing like introductions to my radio show around that song, because it was almost like it felt so huge. And you might know them, but there's a couple called Felsman and Tiley now who are electronic, and they're a duo from London, and they're maybe like one of the few examples I found of something that sounds as massive as Big Black Delta electronically. You're clearly, you've managed to construct something really special in the production of the new project.
Thank you. So then to make ends meet, I did everything, and so for a while I was a touring guitar player in M83, and in that band I saw like how much Anthony could get done without cymbals, and then I heard about how Peter Gabriel was like that's the Peter Gabriel sound that ended up becoming Phil Collins's sound, which was like, we're just not going to use cymbals anymore. And it was, these things were like adding up to me. And then there's like there's a band called Freesha, Freescha, and they're based out of here in the Valley in Los Angeles. And weirdly enough, I think they ended up writing for like Britney Spears or whatever, but like nobody knows what they look like. They never play shows, but like their music just goes in and out of tune in this beautiful warbly way. And and Capsize was just about like literally a shipwreck. So it's like when you have these images in your head, and then you have this tapestry to work with some rules, which is like no cymbals, and at the time side chaining was really a big deal. I might have gone a little overboard with it, but like,
that's a good Capsize pun, going overboard.
Right. But like the thing is that I didn't know what I was doing. It was just like me and Logic turning the thing up until it really drastically did something. And so it was funny because at the time I was also teaching young people how to make records on their laptop at a music school, and thankfully a lot of people would come to be like, hey, how did you get that sound? And I would show them, and then kind of the headmaster, if you will, would come and be like, hey, I need you to stop doing that because what you're showing them is absolutely wrong and a fucking nightmare. And I and it was kind of felt like out of like a cliched movie, out of a after school special of like, you can't do that here, that kind of thing. And
do it by the book.
And we're just talking about limiter settings, which is like, that obviously that record is blown to fuck. And the original version, the German label that put it out tried to sue me because it literally blew their speaker systems in the office.
Oh, that's incredible. And
so they were like, you got to pay us back for that. And but I didn't know what I was doing, I still kind of don't.
But it's funny because maybe, I don't know if you know the genre funk now, but you may have like accidentally invented funk like 7-8 years early, because there's a lot of tracks now really popular, like a lot of young people listening to them, where it is like that really like tuned up sound. And I don't know, I think if you're listening to electronic music, you want that. You don't want it to sound like it's playing through a tinny speaker. It needs to kind of envelop you and make the room shake, which Big Black Delta does.
Thank you. I really enjoy out of tuneness. It's funny. It'll change, and I this should be just titled Cliche Baits. At popular music right now is so in tune, literal, and so compressed and perfect that it's pretty much invisible. And what was really good about pop music in the 80s and the 90s is that there was 3 dimension to it.
Yeah.
Not even to mention like songwriting, where there would be like a middle 8 and then maybe an outro that sounded completely different than the beginning. You know what I mean? Words. And I'm not complaining about that because, you know, we're cyclical beings.
Yeah.
So that's just part of the gig. And I think that's probably happening now as all these and our structures are crumbling around us. It's, you know, it's going to get campfirey. In the sense that, no, I just mean like it'll be a lot more elemental and not so like, hey, look, because now that everybody has a laptop and it's been democratized to the point that literally everybody is a fucking genius production. Everybody I know is just amazing. Not many people can mix because that is a lifetime of learning. Mixing is probably the hardest thing to do. But everything you can, you know, it's ironic that I'm saying this, but like things that sound like in the box disappear now.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to record 3 people in a room and just use one mic, that would be more exciting to me now than something that was super produced 20 years ago.
No, absolutely. I want to say big shout out to Goldfish in chat and Lim as well. There's actually a question to lighten the mood maybe a little bit from Rihivi. That he's a Finnish music producer actually, so we're fairly worldwide. I feel like you must have played in Finland at some point.
I love the Finns. You guys are the greatest. Big fan.
Yeah, the rally driving culture is big there. But he wants to know, do you like mangoes? His username is Rihivi likes mangoes.
I adore mango. It's my favorite fruit.
Well, there you go. I think you've won yourself a new fan now. And yeah, just in case you guys don't know who Jonathan is, he's a legendary electronic music artist now who was in a band called Mellowdrone before. Big Black Delta, one of my favorite, actually, electronic music projects. You should definitely check him out. And he probably has collabed or knows a lot of artists that you guys will absolutely have heard of. And I guess kind of on that note, you got praise from Jay Z on the debut record with Big Black Delta, didn't you? On one of his blogs. So have you ever talked directly to Jay and do you know how that happened?
No, I don't go out very much. But I remember hearing that and being like, oh, that's really fucking cool. But it's weird, you know, it's you really can't control how the world works and when it works. You know, like I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I got an email from Lorde of all people.
Lorde? Was she inspired by one of your...
She was like a Mellowdrone fan. And I was like, how the fuck did this...
So Melodrama by her, is there a chance that was somehow inspired by Mellowdrone, the name of it?
I highly doubt it. But it was... I have weird stories like that where you're like at a party and Marilyn Manson walks up and he's like, you know, he cuts the act and he's just a normal dude, but he's got like one weird contact and he's like, dude, I really like that record. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. Yeah,
It's a trip, man. Life is, and so I've been real grateful to have little moments like that I hope to take with me.
But I bet that's so much more rewarding than, say, I don't know, having like 10 million monthly listeners on Spotify or whatever, when you have someone of that caliber who respects you so much. And it's nice. It makes me happy that you've got that kind of recognition, because I remember like there was an obscure band called Wild Beasts who got like modest success in the UK, and Ellie Goulding had one of their lyrics as her Twitter bio. And it's little things like that the music, you never know who you're going to inspire. And I'm sure that's the case.
You never know. Yeah, that I just because it's not a fun game. Like, but I think if I was a candlestick maker, I'd be depressed about it too. That's just who I am.
Yeah, depressive personality. I understand.
Yeah, I take medication for it. Like, I was born like that. If you look at my baby pictures, like I had that harumph. Like I wasn't supposed
constantly.
To. Right. So I'm here to not work off. I came to this planet to learn and probably settle settle the balance on certain things, because I have a feeling that in prior lives I was a complete shit. And I mean this literally. So it's trying,
Yeah.
and not because of a fear of anything. It's just I would love to be uh, I would love to leave this planet better than I
No,
than
it's
when
interesting. You feel you carry a bit of a karmic debt.
No,
So-
I mean, just explain why some of us don't fight depression. Some of us don't. Some of us are in the SAS, and some of us write music, and some of us are brick builders.
Yeah.
Like it, yeah. This is just the one I chose, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe in another life you were laying the bricks, laying the foundations of a different kind of project.
Well, I think, well, we could speak about this forever. I just think all of us, anybody that's on the planet right now, has probably lived thousands of lives on this planet as a human.
Yeah.
And probably millions of lives as other things in other places. And I use that for myself. I'm not saying anybody should believe this, but I use that for myself because it brings me peace, especially now as like every day. The amount of data that you consume in a day was something that somebody consumed in a lifetime only about 120 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wish I could like pause everything and tell everybody and pat them on the back and be like, your body wasn't supposed to like take all of this on as much.
Yeah, that is true. I think the big thing for me is we need to understand that we are animals and we haven't evolved from the state we were in when we were living in, huts with kind of hunting. And even just socially, I think the amount of people that we meet in an average week, I think it's probably far beyond what nature would have equipped us for. And that's probably why we experience these things that we do.
And in fairness to us, we've done a good job, because I mean, if you look at the scale of technology, and it's just a 90-degree angle, it's just, and so like for a species to be overnight, I mean, not to be that guy again, but I remember before the internet, I remember like when computers were just like something that were only in schools, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so how fast everything changes and how faster everything is continuing to change. That's what I mean. I would say from a mountaintop to everybody to be like, hey, as fucked as it is, you're doing pretty fucking good considering.
Absolutely. That's a good message to take. Some really nice messages in chat, actually. Rivi says he likes Finnish people and Mango's what a legend. And I think in response to a lot of what you were saying as well, Tim always seems to choose the best people for interviews. I know the legends. I know the legends, so thank you for that, Rivi. Matilda says, should songs be more minimalistic?
Well, there's luckily plenty of space and infinity, so they should be everything should exist. I personally enjoy negative space, so for me, I like minimalistic shit, which is funny because when you listen to, and when I listen to my shit, I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, take it down a notch. You know what I mean? But like,
I'm like, put it up.
I really enjoy minimalism in paintings, in food, because no matter how fancy a meal is, a cheeseburger always still works,
Yeah.
even or a vegan one, or a vegan hot dog, like simple. It's so beautiful. And so like even in design, if you were building a building or building an iPhone, it's always that. It's always like, form following function. And if you can make it as simple as possible, then it's such a treat to ingest. Yeah. So for me, yes. But I don't think there's days that I want to listen to Dream Theater,
That's a good reference, actually. I know people have compared you to Muse before, and the thing I know about Dream Theater is how amazing the pianist is, and it's very like expansive. Matilda actually goes on, there's a thing in art called Oliver's Rule that states that songs should be as compact as possible. Would you two agree? I mean, my background is like a radio DJ. It's actually funny that in chat, Mango Dealer says, is this UK radio? Basically, yeah, this is a radio show online because that's my background. I used to work for the BBC, and now I'm doing this because I think this is the future. But as a radio DJ, I don't like very compact, minimalist songs. I actually like very big, expansive sounding things. It's always a bit of taste, but I love the band Animal Collective, who I'm pretty sure you'll know, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think they're the complete opposite of that. So I would say I like stuff that's very non-compact. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
It's, well, I mean, like I said, it's like the question before the question is it good? Does it make me feel good? And then if it does, 2 minutes, 6 minutes, I don't give a shit. Like, as long as it's it's working. So there's I forget what it is, but it's a steel drum band that covers music, and they do a version of PIMP, and whenever I go driving, that's what I listen to, just like on complete loop. And it's just as simple as you could think of, and it's a 50 Cent song, but the way they cover it is just so good, and it's so minimalistic, and I can listen to that song for hours, and so it, when to anybody that's listening that's a songwriter or trying to make things, something that is very simple that I didn't realize until later in my life is just that, ask yourself a question when you're sitting down. Am I doing this for me, or is this something that I want to communicate something with? And so if you're doing it for you, then just, jerk off, do whatever the fuck, and enjoy that.
Absolutely. Really good question. Sorry, were you about to finish a point?
Well, if you're going to do it for somebody else, always remember, if you want to do a good job of communicating, the less amount of words, if you can do it in less words, the better.
Absolutely. Less words better. There's a really good question from Read and Rap as well, which is, are there any rap or hip hop artists that you'd be interested to or want to work with? I mean, you got the Jay Z cosign, so maybe he's open, but anyone else where you'd be like, yeah, that'd be really cool?
I'm not well versed enough. Everybody knows about Kendrick now, but I mean, I've been living in California for over 20 years, so now everybody knows what a genius. Speaking of records that you can just have on loop, it's anything that he's done is amazing, but I'm not going to, I mean,
maybe he's a fan. Maybe he loved Mellowdrone back in the day, or Big Black Delta. I mean, what was he on in 2013 when the Big Black Delta came out? Like Good Kid, Mad City, I think it was 2012, which is still my favorite by him. So you never know.
I'm always here of service, bud.
Yeah, come on, Kendrick, hit the line. So the thing I wanted to ask you about next, before we move on to the actual album, is this idea of sacred geometry, which I think you mentioned it in relation to the formation of Big Black Delta. So what is sacred geometry to you?
It's that inherent in the third dimensional universe that we all occupy. There are reoccurring mathematical themes in different medium. So, what you see happening in a microscopic piece of grain of sand mirrors something on a macro scale. And anyway, sacred geometry is putting in a visual presentation in 2D what's happening in 3D. And so it's just a way of communicating. It could be, I could talk to you about 3, 6, and 9 and being like, hey, look at this.
You're gonna dig this.
And da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Or you could show a picture of how circles intersect, and if you do it in a certain way, it yields another picture. And then anybody that's ever done psychedelics or been knocked out,
one or the other.
Or even right now, if you were to squint your eyes really hard, you would see geometric patterns. And so why is it that my brain is doing the same geometric patterns that I see in a snowflake, which I also see in the pattern of ocean waves if you put it on a certain scale, or you use a cosine to do something and it gives you the same number as pi, and pi is here, and all this other stuff. And so it's kind of like conspiracy theory shit, but it's positive. and it's math, you know.
Yeah.
And all it is just a simply, you know how comic books is a way of telling a story, or you could just write it,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you could watch a movie. The idea of sacred geometry is just a way of telling that story. It's like the comic book version as opposed to just reading words.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've learned to appreciate that math can be beautiful, especially through video games and a game that I love called No Man's Sky, where they generate an entire universe, they generate an entire world using procedural math, and it's like you can create the shape of a hill using equations, and then you can populate that hill with grass and trees and code in complementary colors together. So I like that theory actually.
And human beings are designed to see pattern. Like that's what's made us help evolve so quickly. So it's just feeding into that, and it's like, again, it's the part of the brain that loves a conspiracy, but instead of like they're all out to get you, which they are.
Yeah.
I'd rather bask in the glory of the fuck is happening around me, you know, because it's easy to be, like I said, depressed. And so part of the way I take care of myself is to constantly look around and be like, wow.
Yeah, it is inspiring. It is inspiring. And the new album from you, Adonai, I don't know if that's a theme that is very central to it, but my understanding is the meaning of the word is Lord in Hebrew. What were the kind of concepts going through your mind when you created this
So
album?
in Hebrew, it means that, but where I got it from is that it's even older, way older than Hebrew, and it's Sumerian.
Wow.
And even older than that. And I got really into, especially over COVID, I got into, like, you know, near-death experiences, people talking about what they saw and what they experienced, and then you can, you know, there's people that supposedly channel, like Dolores Cannon and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got into the Law of One, which was like this, again, channeled thing. And I just loved it so much. And if you get bored one day, I just look it up, or not. It's just called the Law of One. And it was, you know, supposedly channeled by, or sent down by this, you know, the Egyptian god Ra. Again, like, I do this for fun, because I got nothing else to do and I don't drink. So anyway, at the end of every one of these, like, seances, so to speak, they would say ADONAI, which is goodbye. And, you know, I'm just thinking on that alien scale that, like, if one were to land down here right now, that's the language I would speak. And so, you know, ADONAI is kind of like me saying hello to fucking aliens in case they're listening. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. If anyone's out there. No, that's kind of beautiful.
You can find that word in classical Greek, which was before Hebrew. You know, it's just this, I love the word, and it's got a lot of vowels in it.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you as well about the artwork for it, which is really beautiful. I put it on the screen just now. It's a kind of very colorful, like, composition. You've got black hands reaching down and all this. It's like you talked about the shape, the geometry of it. So who is behind the artwork, and was it like a commission from you, or was it something you just saw that you felt perfectly summarized?
No, so that is Casper Newbolt, an English artist who I don't know if he's living in Berlin right now. He's just always on the move. So he's done the artwork for Big Black Delta all the way through. And so, you know, when I started this project, because he did the last Mellowdrone record cover, and he and I became very good friends, and we just share anecdotes and memes, and he's a good man. And so this last record, it was just, you know, me telling him exactly what I was telling you, where I was coming from with this record, and how I was channeling with what I saw when I was doing it, and so he made that as a collage, and you would have to speak to him as to, like, how he got there. But you know, I'm just one of his biggest fans, and I was lucky enough to get him to be like, yeah, I'll do another one, you know.
No, it must have been amazing to work together then. I feel like you have a bit of a connection to M83 as well. I think of, great electronic artists, and obviously M83 another one alongside you actually that I think of, and you had this joint remix of Full, and I think you've supported them as well. So I was wondering, what your experience was like with them, and whether there's ever been like more talk of a collaboration again.
Yeah, Anthony was very kind to me. He's just always been very kind to me. Yeah, like I said, how that happened was his guitarist at the time, before the really big record, before he was touring it out here, they were going out with the Killers. So this was like a stadium tour kind of a thing. And a couple weeks before, the guitar player was like, "I can't do this. I want to stay home." And so I got a call that was like, "Hey, can you fill in?" And so that's how I met them.
Wow.
Like I said, it was just like listening to his music. I hadn't heard it prior to that. And so listening to how big it was, and part of it is because he leaves space. So it was like, oh, this is really cool. And then that tour ended, and yeah, then he called me for the Daft Punk thing, because he was like, "You want to do this with me?" And I was like, "Sure." So he recorded the na 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 na, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, because that's part of his songwriting process. And so then I just drizzled shit on that, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. Like, he and I are very similar in the sense that we're solitary people. So like it's kind of like, here, work on this.
Yeah.
And I don't need to talk to you about it. I trust you, and if I don't like it, I won't use it, And it's just, sometimes that's really fun, because then, without somebody hovering over you.
So yeah, I mean, M83, I think, especially, it's that album that I love by them. I assume you are probably a fan of them before you met and collabed, but the debut album, is it? In fact, I don't know if Hurry Up We're Dreaming is the debut, but there's so many incredible songs on there. I think even beyond the obvious ones like Midnight City, like Raconte Moi une Histoire, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful song. So were you quite into M83? Have they inspired the Big Black Delta sound as one of the breakthrough electronic bands in, I guess, mainstream music at the moment?
Oh yeah, his like I said, his understanding of negative space, paradoxically sounds bigger, right? So it's like, if you listen to his tracks, they sound so huge, but there's not that many instruments going on. It's just like allowing the space of, if you get a good sound, you don't need a bunch of shit on top of it,
Yeah, definitely. You don't need to overdo it. Do you listen to any music from Finland? Rahivi would like to know.
Probably. I'm not aware of people's, like I said, I think everything the Finns do is just rad. They're just rad dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just a very rad a very rad people. So there'll be a Big Black Delta tour, hopefully, coming soon to
I would love to, but the way the world is turning now, I don't even know if that's going to be happening anymore.
Do you think it's harder with the current government, maybe in the international policy, or is it just the economy?
Bands my size are not able to tour in the United States, and now because of like how our current president is being so antagonistic to literally anything that is breathing, like touring is impossible, and so it's we're there.
It's a shame. But I know even Animal Collective, I think they had to cancel. I think they cancelled a UK tour because they said it wasn't going to be financially viable. And you're sort of thinking, well, if a band that that big can't do it, then where's the hope?
The thing is that like, and we don't have to talk about this. It's just that all your favorite venues are now owned by the bad guys. And the bad guys, like the last major tour I did, Ticketmaster took, like, I'm not kidding, like 45% off gross of anything. So before I could pay the people that were put on the show and everything else and myself, Ticketmaster comes in and just takes it. And it was like, we booked this tour ourselves. Like, what the fuck? So you can't sustain but I don't think you can any business right now in America that's at least anything.
Yeah.
It's not just it's like, and I live in Los Angeles, like the film industry is non-existent. And so like that's why when you turn on Netflix or any of your streaming shit and anything coming from the US, you're like, this is this sucks. And it's because like there's no industry. Like
It's been gutted. What for
well,
what?
you guys have watched the fall of Rome, so to speak, you know.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I do monthly indie nights in Birmingham myself, and I think we started up. I assume you've been to Birmingham in the UK at some point, like the second city. Yeah. So we don't have as much of a music scene as Manchester. And the night that I run, we do it at a 200 cap venue, and we actually got funding from PRS Foundation. So we now give artists 100% of all ticket sales. We just give it straight to them as promoters. So if you think a 200 cap venue in Birmingham would be viable for you, it would be an honor.
I would do it in a heartbeat and it's not even coming into the UK. Because you have to have a visa if you show up with instruments.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a problem. I've heard this from my friends' bands going the other way to like New Colossus Festival in New York. You can get
like I always follow the rules because I don't want to be, and I'm not even afraid of that. I'm afraid of coming back into my own country because
ICE will deport you.
I was born in Venezuela. My parents are American, but it just says on my passport that I was born in another country. And it's so bad now that like I could have a border crossing guy who's just like, nah. And I'd be like, I literally have a residency. It's not even a green card. I live here. No, you have to go back to England. And it's like, I
understand that anxiety.
I'm a small fish. I can't afford this. I can't. I don't have lawyers and shit.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in like. I mean, it might happen. I just don't want to like spend the rest of my life in a fucking cell. You know.
No, I get that. Maybe live gigs like on Twitch and platforms like that might be the future a bit more because physical travel is quite expensive and expansive these days.
Well, I mean, the inverse is like I've been doing shows by just me solo in the last year, and there is a switch now that like people are locked in live now. Like before everything was happening and we took everything for granted, but now live shows is it's like a lot more religious, and that's been fun. So when I do play locally, it's like everybody walks out like, oh, that was a nice night, you know what I mean? Let's go back to fucking hell, because that's what America is right now, man.
Yeah. I don't want to get too cliche with it, but I think there are, especially recently, it's just there's so many things you have to kind of keep saying it because it is just crazy. One of the things that I think I've kind of almost gleaned during this interview that I find really interesting is that I think you almost said yourself, and you said with M83 it's the same case. You don't have a naturally very like optimistic personality. You actually have quite like a depressive personality type. But then the music that you make, Mellowdrone obviously less so, but Big Black Delta, it's so euphoric. And I feel like for me, I have like the kind of opposite thing. I have a very naturally high energy level, and I think it's been quite like difficult for me sometimes with other people around me where I'm at very like a naturally high level, and other people aren't. So where do you think this euphoria comes from? Like within you, is it something like deeper rooted that's you're able to express through your music?
So the same euphoria that you can tap into is the same one that like I can. I just can't stay in it like you can. So because I believe that there's only one massive infinite consciousness, and that's the one we're all sharing.
Yeah.
We're just wearing different suits and on different
pantheism then.
No, just Hinduism, Buddhism, all of it. Like a lot of the Eastern shit just basically thinks that like we're just one consciousness but we're just embodying different aspects of the third dimensional universe. And so, wait, I lost your question. What was it?
It was just the way that you have quite a
right. So
but you're able to produce this incredible outpouring of euphoria, which I walk around and I'm like, yeah, I'm very hypermanic right now.
Well, I can access it. I just can't stay in it. And then I also think that no matter where you are in the scale of things, like if I was born as you or anybody else, you are going to have the same amount of shit sandwich in your life. Even if you were a billionaire with a massive phallus and everybody loves you and you're fucking funny, like you're still going to be as depressed on something
Yeah.
about something as a coal miner or John Bates. Like that's in my meditations and my understanding of human behavior is that like another thing that we can all relax on is that like on a certain level everybody's just as fucking scared and afraid as you are. So like that's to me that brings me peace because then it's like, oh, I can relax a little bit. It's not just me. Fuck it.
Hey, what's up, Vaughn in chat as well? Hey, bro. We'll be back on Song Request soon. I'm just interviewing Jonathan Bates, aka Big Black Delta, who's an incredible electronic musician, and I'm going to play some of his songs off the back of this interview, so you'll get a sense of what his music is like, because it is really incredible. And I don't know. I feel sometimes we talk about it for so long. I'm like, I can't wait to show people what it actually is if they hadn't heard it. There is a few songs on the album just to wrap up I want to talk about. I think Pickpock really stood out to me when I first heard it. It's such a playful and a fun song. I couldn't actually work out whether it's a glockenspiel or a xylophone you've got on the production there. So it's a xylophone. And yeah, what were the foundations of that song? It feels a bit of a different entry in Big Black Delta's.
I'm what they call a recovering alcoholic. So like if I were to drink, I'll drink myself to death, right?
Yeah.
So don't. But in the height of my alcoholism, I would love to get really fucked up around 4 or 5 in the morning, right before the sun comes up.
Yeah.
So just pound, a couple pints of vodka and then drink a THC lemon juice. So it's got like 200 milligrams of marijuana.
Yeah.
THC. And so by the time the sun was coming up, man, I'm fucking gone. And so I would put in music and go for a walk, and like an asshole I'd be sitting there like listening to like Esquivel and music like that, like cartoon fucking music, and just walking for miles. And so in retrospect it's a funny picture. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
No, drink responsibly, please. but it's funny that that experience of walking with music, it's like that's what I do, and there's something about the motion and the way the sounds interact. Like part of my routine that's become quite sacred is walking around my local park, because there's a lot of green space near me, and I listen to music, and and Big Black Delta's music, it is dynamic, and you clearly, that Pickpock, you have that experience with it too.
Yeah, no, I was writing a song just for that. It's very silly, but it's also violent, and it's kind of like Franz Liszt, like that kind of music, like the Hungarian Rhapsody, the Roger Rabbit kind of music, where I really love music like that, because it's just so fucking goofy, and so that's I had to do a goofy ass song,
I love that you mentioned Franz Liszt, actually, because he is one of my favorite pianists, and I think it's one of his songs, Liebestraum, Love Dream, that Animal Collective actually sampled in one of their songs, and I've always been meaning to kind of get round to actually trying to learn it. But those arpeggios, it is funny how I think people treat electronic music as sometimes so different and separate to something like an upright piano, but actually if you strip it back, the energy feels very similar between Rachmaninoff or Liszt doing an arpeggio, and then some of the, like in Betamax, it feels like that's the same part of the same energy, part of the same genre in a way.
Yeah, I mean, nothing beats a good rhythm. So I can be depressed as shit, but if a good song comes on, I'm one of those guys that's like dancing but crying at the same time. Like it's just like you can't help it, and and it makes sense. Like I said, everything is cyclical. Like everything has a cycle to it. So we are naturally built to be in rhythm with things. Like that's our favorite thing as beings.
What do you think the most depressing Big Black Delta song is then? And maybe the most depressing Mellowdrone song. I imagine it'd be a few. I always love listening to Drury Moon at a certain time where I just feel like I want to kind of deflate a bit and wallow.
That's a love song. Probably there's one called Into the Night.
Oh yeah.
That was that. I was in a abusive relationship with a woman that was like, uh, I don't want to talk shit, but ultimately she was coming from a place of fear in life,
Sure.
and it just everybody around her is dangerously hell. And so that's a sad song to me.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I understand that a lot. And yeah, it's always funny. It's the way it's like one person's sad song is like another person's love song. It's all there's a lot of interpretation that goes there. What's up, Marshy in chat? I think we've already kind of asked the question to Jonathan Big Black Delta. Do you like hip hop songs or rock? I mean,
Everything.
Yeah, everything, every genre. Well, yeah. Who are your favorite bands? What are on your playlist at the moment that you're listening to?
So right now I've been listening to a lot of 60s samba because it's just very relaxing. Cocteau Twins, Sabrina, Sinead O'Connor, Los Panchos, Level 42, Harold Budd, Paula Abdul. Oh, Cars. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. It's quite an eclectic mix. I know a bit of 60s band rock music. That's cool. That's cool. Do you have music that you have made that you like but never publish? Cool beat Lynn wants to know.
Probably a terabyte worth of stuff. Yeah. So if you think my music is bad, you should.
I mean, you should dump it on Bandcamp at some point. Obviously, I think your music's really good, so I want to hear that. How many masterpieces have stayed on the cutting room floor?
It is my favorite thing to say to somebody. It's like, man, I don't like your shit. And I'm like, dude, trust me, you didn't even hear the bad stuff. Like,
this is the good stuff. You're hearing the prime cuts.
So like, give me pity, sir.
Exactly, please. The other song on the album that I think it's almost the name that stood out to me is "I'm Sorry, Alex." So I was wondering whether this is a literal apology, a literal story, and who Alex is.
So, everybody has this, right? Archetypal, like elementary school in America. When we came to the States, it was just like I got picked on, fucked with severely, and this was the late '80s, early '90s. So it's like extra spicy, mean. And again, I'm a sensitive boy, right? Yeah. So by the time I hit puberty, I started taking what ended up becoming called MMA, but at the time it was called shoot fighting, or basically kickboxing, but like with floor stuff.
Okay.
And I hit puberty, and I grew to 6 feet, so I could handle myself at that time. And it's just about a guy that really didn't deserve it. That I was a bully. I became the bully.
Yeah.
I became the person I hated, and I think about him every day. I think about the other two boys that I was the same way to, because I had never been a bully before, and I got drunk on the idea that like nobody could fuck with me. And I think it's the 7th grade or something, and I think about that every day and how I wish I could take that back. Because like I fucking hate cruelty.
Yeah.
And so like that was the thing, is that got into a fist fight, handled myself very well, and then like called him that night crying, being like, I'm sorry about this whole fucking thing. And this poor dude was like, what the fuck, dude? Now you want me to feel bad for you? Like,
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that if you go through your list of shit that you're not proud of, and it's a bit of cowardice, but also respect that I haven't reached out to these people to be like, hey, I'm sorry I did this to you, because I also think that that's kind of selfish,
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do.
Yeah, because I guess maybe part of them wants to move on, and they just don't want to go. Yeah, but would you want to hear from that person? Would it give you closure, or would it bring those feelings back?
My nemesis growing up, if he were to hit me up, I'd be like, what the fuck do you want
be like,
from me?
get in there. But I get that. It's actually really funny how much I relate to this from both sides. Firstly, I think I experienced a bit of what you did at school. I was never physical, but there was one boy I remember it was complicated, because I was a really good friend of his, and he was actually the one who introduced me to a lot of music and took me to a lot of gigs. But I kind of knew especially in hindsight, there were times where we were bullying him, and I was, and I felt when I experienced being on the receiving end of like some pretty vicious stuff, I felt he suddenly came into my mind, and I was like, I need to reach out to him and just say sorry, like 10 years later. And I did, and he actually sort of, I felt like he took it well, and he very much knew and felt the same way as me that he had been bullied at times. But we never kind of met up for that drink, and you do wonder, it's like, what's the right thing to do there?
That's the thing that I don't know what to do. And so when somebody's like, well, why don't you? And I'm like, honestly, there's a cowardice. And then the other is like, I'm okay, like being a shit.
Yeah.
Or been a shit. And I don't need to take something from this person in order to feel balanced. Like I own this. I own this completely, and so I don't know how to handle. You combine those two things, and so I end up writing a song because that's like, you know, what the fuck else am I going?
Yeah, that's how you express it. That's how you express it. But yeah,
it's a song that reminds me of like what a piece of shit I could be.
For sure, and it's important. It's important. Everyone has that, you know, the yin and yang, the two sides in balance with them. I was on the other side of it in a really funny way, because there was just small music scenes. I'm sure you had it in, you know, when you're a band, there's rivalries, there's drama that starts between people. And I got caught up in some. And in Birmingham, one time I was outside a gig, and someone who had it in for me for one reason or another just walked up to me, and they'd just come out of a gig, and I think they'd taken something, and they were being really aggressive. They like shoved me, then threw a drink over me, and it was all like in front of everyone. And I ended up like calling the police, and it was a whole thing. And then they sent me a message later that night like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that got out of hand. I hope you're okay. And it was like a space of a couple hours. And it was so crazy to me how quickly it went from like the really kind of intense and vicious, the hate and the aggression, to the complete sobriety and the regret. And it's messy. Yeah, it's messy being human, but
and it's scary, you know, because like that's especially now, because it's a kind of a virus going around, is people entitled to their anger, and it's not a good look, man. And I want to be, like I said, is the kindest person I can be, and part of that is acknowledging. And I think every human being is like this, that there's a part of us that is really dark.
Yeah.
And we need it. You can't, it's not about turning it off. It's about honoring it and listening to it when you have to, but not letting it. And like I said, like things like alcohol, which there's those of us that like, it doesn't affect us that way. We can have a drink and go to bed. But like, I feel that, and I'm like, all right, let's listen to some death metal. Let's take something that makes me go up. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit. And that's a bad look for a 45-year-old man.
Yeah. Well, it's very Lord of the Flies. It's very Lord of the Flies, I think, the pit of a man's heart. But there is so much kind of positivity and joy, and there's something very, I think, beautiful about feeling that, but choosing still to be so kind and to not give in to that urge to sometimes lash out. Because that's what it is. It's free will at the end of the day. You know, you can choose what kind of person.
Yeah, and honoring free will. I'm not saying others should think this way. You know, like I think that's shitty and what is shitty, but like people that you're like, what the fuck is their problem? They have just as much right to be here and serve whatever the fuck you want to call this just as much. So it's like it's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's a nice definitive note to draw a line under the interview with. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for sparing so much of your time and being so generous with it to chat to me. Yeah, I've never done an interview quite like this, and I'll be putting it on my YouTube, I think, as well, so people can watch you back. So thank you for the time.
Send me the link to that.
I will do. I will tag you in it and do clips and everything. I want to play a few tracks from Big Black Delta off the back of this, because I feel like obviously people have heard you talk, and you talk beautifully, but I think your real talent is the music. And I'd love people to now understand why I'm, excited about this. So what songs do you think I should play off the back of this interview with you?
Oh, brother. Well, I just put out a new record, but there's songs that I put out from a while ago that people really resonate. So, anything from the first record seems to serve people just as much. I like the first couple of songs on this new record. They're all bangers, and they're all at 130 BPM, so you can work out to them.
Love a gym music. I think
So
it's.
if you,
I
if you put the
fucking.
record,
I
if you put
fucking. Sorry, go on.
this new record on, it's 130 all the way through. So like it's, you know how when you put music to like work out to, and
Yeah.
the next song's a different rhythm, it fucks up everything. You can put this
Yeah.
thing on and go for a walk, and it won't fuck up your rhythm for the entire thing, except the last song. So that's what I would recommend.
Hey Poppy, what's up? I joined to I'm fucking wow. Yeah, this is Jonathan Bates from Big Black Delta
fucking
Poppy.
love you.
Yeah.
He wants to I have a song called "I Fucking Love You," which is pretty
I
bad.
was literally just about to bring I fucking love you up. And the reason I bring it up is because there is a girl from Germany who's she watches my streams a lot, and I remember I played her I fucking love you, and we both just like loved that song, and we just like, she was typing the lyrics in chat a lot, and I'm definitely gonna play I fucking love you, I think, but I'll play I think Concerti's Delight, bit of Pickpock, then maybe I fucking love you and some more. But yeah, thank you so much, and I guess if people want to keep up to date with what you're doing, Instagram is that the best place, and maybe what can we expect for the rest of the year?
Just gonna keep putting songs out from this new record, and I just hope we can all survive what the fuck is happening.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mad one, but I think your music's going to help a lot. It's going to help a lot of people. It definitely has helped me a lot. So thank you, Jonathan. I will catch you soon, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye, y'all.